Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. The Bears finally fired Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace. Tony, nothing can bring me down now.
Tony Kornheiser. How'd the Bulls do last night, huh?
They had a 9-game winning streak broken. You think that really tips the scales against Nagy and Pace being fired? Are you crazy? Bulls are still in first. We're the Bears.
Not for you. Not for you. You've been calling for that for 2 years.
Yeah, that's right.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Niners rise up against the Rams, the Dolphins fire Brian Flores, and the national championship game is 2.5 hours away. But we begin today with the near chaos in the NFL yesterday. Well, last week, you called the possibility of the Chargers and Raiders tying and both making the playoffs fake news. You said it would never happen.
Time and again.
Well, all the dominoes fell in place. Pittsburgh beat Baltimore in overtime. The Colts were hammered in Jacksonville. And the Chargers and Raiders were actually tied in overtime with about 30 seconds left. Brandon Staley called a questionable timeout, and the Raiders picked up enough yards subsequently to kick a field goal and win. So, Wilbon, do you blame Staley for the Chargers being out?
Yes, but not because of the timeout called. He made nutty decisions to me all season long. I mean, there's one game against Kansas City where like 2 or 3 times. I mean, this guy, Tony, made decisions where I know that people think he's one of the bright young minds in all of football. And that may prove to be the case. They may win a championship before long. But, Tony, I don't have to wait till last night. You know, I had said weeks ago, what is he doing? And by the way, what defensively was his team doing? He says they wanted to put their premium run-stop defense out there, and they couldn't stop 28 in a Raiders jersey from ripping off 4, 5, 6, 7 yards all the time. And the last carry he got is the one that made that field goal 47 yards instead of 54. So I blame him for his team missing the playoffs, but not for the reason most people will.
So I want to go to the background for a second, to the setup, and I want to start with the fact that the biggest choke job of the year was the Indianapolis Colts.
No question.
I mean, don't tell me that they lost earlier in the year to Jacksonville. The playoffs are on the line. You have to win that game. That is a terrible loss. Pittsburgh, I'm going to give Roethlisberger credit, especially in the overtime on 3rd and 4th down passes. He was absolutely terrific, but he's done, Mike. We both know he cannot throw the ball down the field more than 10 or 12 yards. Yeah. So I'm glad he won his last 2 games, and now you can go home and feel good about everything. And now to the Raiders and the Chargers. Justin Herbert in the 4th quarter was sensational. Yeah. He made 6 4th down passing conversions for first downs and or touchdowns. He was absolutely tremendous. By himself, I thought he was going to win. I don't particularly blame Staley, but I'm going to get to something. I'm going to give you credit, Mike, for you. The quarterback is, you said they take a nap.
They do.
They take a nap.
Yeah.
They lose these games and sometimes in excruciating ways, Mike.
Yes, the truth. By the way, if we're going to dole out some praise, and that's deserved, okay, let's dole out some criticism. Carson Wentz, Pennsylvania. Wentz has got to be one of the best 50 players in the league. Carson Wentz attaches himself to losing. He didn't win the Super Bowl. Yes, he led his team there. He didn't win that game. And since then, Tony, you keep taking the chance. I don't mean you personally, but people, experts, former players want to roll with Carson Wentz. How's that looking now? Things look pretty good in the second quarter for your Super Bowl pick, Tone. The Rams were up 17-0 over the rival Niners in Los Angeles. And Sean McVay was 45-0 and leading at halftime, but not today, McVay. San Francisco battled back, pushed the game to OT. Robbie Gould made a field goal to put the Niners in the playoffs. Tone, what does this result tell you about the Niners? But more importantly, what does it tell you about your pick, the Rams?
Yeah, so I'll be brief with what it tells me about the Niners. I knew they were a good team, and I know that they own the Rams. Jimmy Garoppolo is now 6-0 against the Rams, and he played this game with half a thumb. Okay, he had half a thumb on his throwing hand in this particular game. So more importantly, as you suggest, what does it tell me about the Rams? I can't trust the Rams, Mike. I sat here on this show on Friday and I said I thought they would win this game. I said they were heading into the playoffs, going in exactly the right direction. They'd won 5 games in a row. They were getting Cam Akers back at running back. You know, the stats you mentioned, they're up 17-0, 17-3 at the half. McVay's 45-0. And now he's 45-1 in that particular thing. And why? Matthew Stafford throws 2 picks. Mike, it's 7 picks in the last 3 games.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to be the MVP. I'm backing away a little bit now. I said on this air, Mike, that if they lost this game, it would derail them because they needed this game for confidence in the playoffs. And I feel that they are derailed right now.
Tony, I don't think they're derailed because you mentioned having no confidence in them. Who you got confidence in? Huh? Seriously. Even the Golden Boys team, Tom Brady's team, I don't even know who's going to be out there with him. They got so many guys hurt and out and departed, dearly departed. I don't have confidence in anybody. Who you got confidence in? You got confidence in the Cardinals? You got who you want to pick? You got confidence in Buffalo with some of the losses they had?
I got confidence in the Packers hosting games
except
when it's going to be 10 below
they
0.
Don't cash in on those. Because as great as Aaron Rodgers has been with his 27 MVPs, he got 1. He's got half as many as Ben Roethlisberger. He's got a third of the number of chips to the Super Bowl as Ben Roethlisberger. So I ain't trusting the Packers. And granted, I may have a little, grudge on. But Tony, I'm going back to that game. You apparently were not paying attention to Matthew Stafford for the previous 10 years of his career, like some of us in the Midwest, where we saw him 2, 4, 6 times a year. And I didn't know why you picked him to be the MVP because there was nothing there in the previous years. He's a fine quarterback. I'd like to have him on my team all these years up until now. But you put a lot of confidence in him, and I don't know why you had it.
Well, I will just say this, that you could say that the Rams are still okay because they host Arizona next week.
Yeah, they'll beat them.
But Arizona's 8-1 on the road, and they beat them 37-20 in L.A. the last time. So I
can't trust Arizona.
Don't have a lot of confidence. Yeah. The axe has fallen on a bunch of NFL coaches and general managers. Vic Fangio was fired yesterday by Denver after going 19-30. Today, Matt Nagy and Ryan Pace were canned by Chicago. Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman are out in Minnesota. Nagy and Zimmer had winning records overall, though not this year. But the biggest surprise was the Dolphins firing Brian Flores. He won 8 of his last 9 games. He had winning records in each of his last 2 seasons. Wilbon, what do you make of this?
I don't know what to make of it, except it's the NFL. Brian Flores, really? His team responds like that? His team goes in the dumper. Most teams, if not all, 1-7, they're looking for time in Cancun. What are the Dolphins doing? I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what ownership there is ever doing. There have been a series of bizarre decisions in recent years. Now, that's Flores. And the Flores thing, it's just, I want to hear more that come out of there. I want to know what the players think of him, if they defend him, if they stand up for him. There's a lot I want to hear in the coming days about Flores in Miami. Yeah. The other situations, Tone, you can dismiss everybody. And some of those, they deserve to be dismissed. I think the Bears, more than anything. I'm as glad that Pace has been dismissed as I am Nagy. Because Pace seemed to be the arrogant guy who thought he was God's gift to executive life in the NFL. And you say, oh, you got 8 years and you can't put together an offensive line? So there's some situations like Minnesota, clear them out too. I had no problem with that, even though Spielman might have been somewhat of a surprise. But Tony, this is what happens the Monday after the final week in the NFL.
Yeah, we're still waiting to see what the Giants do with Joe Judge.
Fire him. They're going to can him
we know
too.
The GM announced that he was going to step aside and retire after this. Let me get to Flores for a second, because it is baffling to me personally how this could happen. I look at a guy who works for an owner that everybody says, the owner said, this is not my guy to move forward. I'm not on the inside, Mike. On the outside, Flores looked like the one guy who came out of the Belichick tree in New England who knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
All right. Now, then the owner also said, I'm not after Harbaugh. I'm not going to be the guy to take Harbaugh out of Michigan, because he's a Michigan man too.
Yeah.
But if Harbaugh goes to the Bears, is he going to let him go to the Bears, or is he going to wait for Harbaugh to call him up and say, I'm ready to go and I'm ready to work for you at this point? In Flores' case, in the owner's case, I look at the owner, Steve Ross, in the same way that I look at Shad Khan in Jacksonville, and I wonder, do these guys have a clue about what's going on in the NFL? Because I believe that Ross has been there for 12 years. They made the playoffs 1 year, Mike. They had 3 winning seasons, and Flores just had 2 of them.
And he had
had
cans
2
him,
of them.
fires him.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
That's why I want to hear more reaction coming out of South Florida. Maybe some players will now stand up for their coach, who they just played their butts off for. They did.
I'll tell you this. If you want to read reaction, read Greg Cody in the Miami Herald, because he crushes the guy. Let's take a break. Coming up, would you rather be Alabama or Georgia heading into tonight's national championship game?
And our thoughts on Klay Thompson's return to the court after 31 months away. He could have been hanging out with Tony in the attic. He's been gone so long. As a matter of fact, have we seen the two of you apart?
No. By the way, you want to give credit to people, give credit to the Raiders. Give credit to the Raiders.
That guy deserves to stay there as coach. Don't want to hear Harbaugh's name in association with the Raiders.
It's on to Cincinnati, literally. On to Cincinnati, where they
go matchups inside. It's Devontae Wyatt, it's Jalen Carter, it's Jordan Davis. I don't expect Bryce Young to play like this again. I think Georgia's defense will show you more what they're about in this matchup and make Bryce Young look a lot more human and make him have to work for great plays. Listen, he did it once. Can he do it against a great defense again? If I'm Georgia, I'm going to make him do it with a lot of pressure in his face.
Well, David, let's flip to the other side of the ball for a second. Other than guys just playing better, and we know that can happen, what, if anything, can Georgia do offensively that really should and can bother Alabama?
I think there's a couple things. One, I think they're going to run the football more to the perimeter. They ran the ball up the middle against Alabama. It's like beating your head up against the wall. I think you got to get on the perimeter a little bit more. Stetson Bennett, the quarterback for Georgia, he can really run, like 22 miles an hour on the GPS type of deal. I think he's a super athletic dude. I think he will run the football more. And I think you're going to see a bunch of quick passes to the perimeter, to James Cook, to Brock Bowers, to those guys, to Kenny McIntosh, getting the ball in the hands of those guys quickly and letting your playmakers go to work. Listen, Bryce Young has to go out and win the game. He has to go out, throw the ball a ton, scramble, make plays. Stetson Bennett has to manage the game. This is a team that's built around him so great, defensively, offensively, special teams. I think he's got to be a guy that gets first downs and doesn't make those critical mistakes. You turn the ball over, that's how you lose. He plays a clean game. Georgia's very much going to be in this and have a really good chance to win.
It's amazing. I want to change my mind now, but I won't. I've been leaning to Alabama, because how do you not lean to Alabama? Wilbon, where are you leaning?
I know David is so persuasive. You know, he's putting new thoughts in our heads. You know what? I'm not going against Nick Saban. I mean, I'm looking at big picture here. All the things that David outlined can very much take place on both sides of the ball. And I'm still saying Nick Saban, like Bill Belichick, comes up with something, whether it's after halftime, whether it's fourth quarter, to help his team win this game.
We don't know anything. So we're turning to you, and you're a Georgia alum. Which way are you leaning?
Well, here's the thing. I can swing the pendulum back right to you guys now, because best player in this game, Bryce Young. Second best player in this game, Will Anderson. Third best player in this game, Jameis Williams. These are guys that are all for Alabama. The best coach in the history of mankind coaching for Alabama. So there's a lot of things. I think Georgia as a team, you go man for man, position grouping by position grouping, they got a great chance to win the ball game. But you got Nick Saban on the sidelines. You got the upper echelon of talent. If I'm Georgia and the recipe to win, I can't let Will Anderson wreak havoc. I can't let Bryce Young and Jameson Williams has that connection again. It's got to be to somebody else. There's got to be something to it's time, right? And you've had an opportunity. We've had 4 repeats of top 5 teams for national championships. We've had 4. This will be the 5th. All of those rematches, guys, the team that lost in the first initial bout against each other won in the national championship. That's why I think Georgia will get it done today.
That's persuasive.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Appreciate it, guys.
The national championship game airs at 8 p.m. Eastern. You know where? On this network. Let's take one last break, but still to come, could Novak Djokovic play in the Australian Open after all?
Well, Tony, my family is from Georgia. Not happy with me right now. Ja Morant, he made a block to remember, a dunk to remember, and he rained doom on the Lakers last night. Doom on their heads.
David can convince me. He can convince me that Georgia will win. He can. He can. Happy time, people. Happy 58th birthday, John Bosa. The New Hampshire native played defensive end at Boston College and was drafted 16th overall in 1987 by the Miami Dolphins, where he played for 3 seasons. His elder son, Joey Bosa, played defense at Ohio State and was drafted 3rd overall in 2016 by the San Diego Chargers. His younger son, Nick Bosa, also played defense at Ohio State and was drafted second overall in 2019 by the San Francisco 49ers. The Bosas are the second family to have 3 members drafted in the first round. The first, of course, is the Mannings with Archie, Peyton, and Eli.
And Tony, the Mannings could sort of break that tie, if you will. Young Arch, I mean, just a couple of years from now, he could be slinging it after coming high off the draft board, right?
He could. By the way, I think the Mannings went 2-1-1. That's pretty good.
Crazy.
Happy anniversary, Auburn. On this day 11 years ago, Cam Newton and the number 1 Tigers beat Chip Kelly and number 2 Oregon 22-19 to close out a 14-0 season with the BCS National Championship. That season, Newton passed for 30 touchdowns and ran for 20 more. That was the 5th national championship in a row for the SEC. The SEC has won 11 of the last 15 championships. And when either Alabama or Georgia wins tonight, it will be 12 of the last 16. Alabama alone has 6 of those championships and is looking at 7.
Tony, there's no questioning the football superiority of the SEC. It's not even a discussion that needs to be had. The discussion is the rest of the country interested in this small sort of regional domination? I don't know that people in the Pacific and the mountain time zones or even parts of the Central are as enthralled with this as maybe some networks and the SEC where football is king. I just wonder, we're going to see this play out over time. Who and how many are interested?
That's why I think they should go to 8, give more teams a chance. Happy trails to Klay Thompson's absence from the NBA. While the play of the night in the NBA was John Morant's astonishing block on Avery Bradley, the biggest news of the day was Thompson's return after more than 2 years on the sidelines. Gratified by the ovation he received when introduced to the home crowd, Thompson took 18 shots, scored 17 points in 20 minutes, a rate of production that could make the Warriors even scarier. Thompson made a few threes, which was expected, but he also had a dunk, which reassured everyone he still has explosion. And afterwards, Thompson said, quote, "To know I can still do that, and to be able to get to my shots and rise up and shoot, it is only up from here," unquote.
Tony, that was a scream out loud moment in my house. When Klay Thompson went up and you thought, he's going to roll this. He's not going to, oh my God, he flushed it. It's a scream out loud moment to see Klay Thompson make the move and come down and land in the same way or a similar way that took him out, during the playoffs against Toronto. It was just thrilling to watch Klay Thompson. But Ja Morant, there's not nearly enough Ja Morant love out there, Tony. When this football season finally ends sometime in June, maybe we'll get to Ja Morant. He's a hell of a player.
And a bonus happy trails to Novak Djokovic's detention down under. An Australian judge declared that the government's decision to cancel Djokovic's visa was, quote, unreasonable, on the grounds that Djokovic hadn't been given enough time to speak with his lawyers or with Tennis Australia after being detained. Australia's immigration minister, Alex Hawke, will now decide whether to intervene or allow Djokovic to stay and play in the Australian Open, which begins next week. According to multiple reports, Djokovic remains unvaccinated against COVID, but claims he has had the virus twice as recently as last month, and therefore he qualifies for medical exemption from vaccination.
Tony, Djokovic, for me personally, has gone from being annoying and maybe the greatest tennis player of all time, because in a short time, he may have the number and he may separate himself. So he's gone from annoying but great to somebody that seems a little sinister to me. And so I am suspicious of him now and certainly will root for him to lose, whether it's lose late and embarrassing or lose early and just get out. But Djokovic is taken on a darker tone to me, whatever he's about.
Yeah, my feeling about this is that he could have just announced what had happened to him personally, all right? Come clean about all of it and why he was applying for this exemption, so it's all above board, and what you're talking about then is out of play. Because he seems like open and sunny at that point, and he didn't do that, and to my knowledge, he still has not done that. He still has not.